Hello, algebra students. Today we are going to learn how to solve quadratic equations by factoring. And this is really pretty easy. It's different than what you're used to doing when we solve a linear equation. We're going to factor, and then we're going to solve each part of the factored solution for 0. So let me just show you how to do this because it's actually pretty simple. All right, first of all, we've got this trinomial here. And, you know, we can do this the simple way where we just go 1, 6, and 2, 3. And since this is a positive, we're going to add to get this number here. Well, 2 plus 3 is 5. So this is going to factor like x plus 2 as a quantity and the x plus 3 as a quantity, right? Hopefully you can do that. Pretty simple. Now, this is a multiplication problem, isn't it? You agree with me right there? See this? We've got this quantity times this quantity. And this multiplication problem is equal to 0, isn't it? Right? Well, how do you get 0 in a multiplication problem? Don't you have to multiply by 0? For example, 2 times 0 equals 0, or 0 times 2 equals 0. Doesn't one of the factors have to be 0? Now, let's take a look at these two factors. One of the factors is x plus 2. Let's set it equal to 0. Let's solve for x. X equals -2. Let's take a look at the other factor, x plus 3. Set it equal to 0. Solve for x. X equals -3. The solution to this is x equals -2 or x equals -3. What does that mean? If I put -2 in for x into this equation, -2 squared plus 5 times -2 plus 6, watch what I'm going to get. -2 squared is 4 minus 10 plus 6. Hey, that equals 0, doesn't it? Yeah, the same thing is going to happen if I put -3 in for x. I'll get a -3 squared plus 5 times -3 plus 6. Well, that's going to be 9 minus 15 plus 6. Yep, that equals 0. Okay, so what did we do? We factored, and then we took each of the factors, set it equal to 0, and solved. Well, let's try this one here. Looks like a difference of perfect squares pattern to me, which means it'll factor as x plus 5 as a quantity and x minus 5 as a quantity. I take each of the factors, x plus 5 equal to 0, solve for x. Then I take x minus 5, set it equal to 0, solve for x. So that means that x equals -5 or +5 is a solution to this function, equation, excuse me. Let's try this one. Looks like I'm going to use that trinomial grouping thing. So I'm going to multiply 6 times 5 and get 30. And then I'm going to look for two factors of 30 that subtract to get 13. Well, let's see here. 2 and 15. Ooh, I think I've got it. So I've got 6x squared minus 2x plus 15x minus 5. And then I'm going to group. And when I do that, I can pull out a GCF of 2x, and I'll get 3x minus 1. Here I'll pull out a GCF of 5, and I'll get 3x minus 1. And then I'll pull out the 3x minus 1, and get 2x plus 5. That'll equal 0. I take the first factor, 3x minus 1, set it equal to 0, and I solve for x. X equals 1/3. I take 2x plus 5, set it equal to 0, solve for x. -5/2, or -2.5. So my two solutions for x in this problem are 1/3 and -5/2. Meaning if I put 1/3 in for x and I do to the original equation, I will get 0 for an answer. If I put -2.5 in for x, I will get 0 for an answer. All right, let's take a look at this one. Now I haven't done a whole lot of this yet, but you notice how there's an x in each one? That's like a GCF. I'm actually going to pull that x out front, and I'm going to pretend like it's not there. And I'm going to factor x squared minus x minus 42. Okay? Now, I need factors of 42 that subtract to get -1. X stays out front. I'm going to get an x minus 7 and an x plus 6. That, of course, is going to equal 0. And I really shouldn't have that bracket there anymore. Sorry, let me get rid of that. Okay. Now, one thing I want to draw attention to is there's actually 3 factors here. There's this first one. There's this second one right here. And then there's this third one right here. I'm going to set them all equal to 0 and solve for x, and then I'll know my possible values. Well, I've got x minus 7 equals 0, which means x could equal positive 7. I've got x plus 6 equal to 0. Solving for x gets me x equals -6. Now this one, the green one's the easiest. I actually just take to x equal to 0, and there we go. There's nothing to solve. X is already alone. See that? X equals positive 7, -6, or 0. Those are the possible answers. Okay. All I did was factor and set the factors equal to 0. Solve for x. Okay, that's your lesson for today. Mr. Lawrence signing off. Good night, everybody.